my name is Kristen and this is Kristen Craves the Books. I say this every month I feel like, but I'm serious this time. March has some incredible releases, some of my most anticipated books of the year, such a wide range of genres, some really unique premises, so I'm just really excited to share all of these with you. March 7th is the first release date of the month, and we're starting with one that I'm actually currently reading and I have a physical arc of. This is Clytemnestra by Costanza Casati. I've talked about this a few times. I'm actually buddy reading this with Nat from Nerdy Nat Reads, and she's at 26% last time I checked our Storygraph buddy read group, and I've read one chapter, so I really need to catch up on this. But I've been fighting a migraine. This weather, the snow, I'm so tired of it. I get such like pressure migraines and they're the worst, but I'm feeling good now. So I'm excited to get more into this because I love Clytemnestra as a character. If you are familiar with the Iliad and the Odyssey at all, you will know this character. If you've read Electra by Jennifer Saint, you would have read her POV in that book. I think she's fascinating, and I try not to read the back of books unless they're so good, and this is one of my favorite synopses of all time, so I have to read it to you. And it says, "You are born to a king, but marry a tyrant. You stand helplessly as he sacrifices your child to placate the gods. You watch him wage war on a foreign shore and comfort yourself with violent thoughts of your own. You play the part, fooling enemies who deny you justice. Slowly, you plot. You are Clytemnestra. But when the husband who owns you returns in triumph, what then? Acceptance or vengeance? Infamy follows both. So you bide your time and wait until you might force the gods' hand and take revenge, until you rise. For you understood something that others don't. If power isn't given to you, you have to take it for yourself." And if you know her story, you know. So that just gets me really excited. The first chapter of this was really beautifully written. Now we're going into her relationship with her sister Helen. If you know Helen and her significance in these Greek myths, you know about that. And I don't know, I just think that this is such a fascinating character, and I'm excited that we get a full book from her. And I'm getting back to my Greek myth retelling love. That is like an area of fantasy that really works for me, so can't wait to dive into that. And I'm doing sprints tonight, so hopefully I'll make a chunk into that and catch up to Nat. So if you've been around my channel for a minute, you know how much I adore those YA classic remixes. There was The Self-Made Boys, which was a Great Gatsby retelling that I still have to read, and I love Anna Marie McLemore, so I don't know why I haven't read that yet. So Many Beginnings, which I loved, a Little Women retelling. My favorite so far, What Souls Are Made Of, is a Wuthering Heights retelling, and that's by Tasha Suri. So they're taking different popular authors and giving them these classics, and they put a new spin on them. And what I've found from these so far is that the endings seem to be more hopeful, because a lot of these classics kind of end in tragedy, but I think that the authors are doing a good job of bringing them to life and giving them different endings, but that still feel true to the original tale. And the next one we're getting is My Dear Henry by Kaylin Bayron, who wrote Cinderella is Dead. I'm really, really excited about this. This is a Jekyll and Hyde retelling. I've never read the original, but I think we're all familiar with the story. I love any gothic literature. I am always drawn to that, especially if it's set in the 1800s in London. That is just the atmosphere, and that always works for me. So that is when this one is set. It says a teen boy tries to discover the reason behind his best friend's disappearance and the arrival of a mysterious and magnetic stranger in this misty Victorian London. So obviously that is the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type character. And we're following a young boy who I think had a romance with this person who has gone missing, and then a different character comes into the picture, and he's dark and mysterious, and our main character is trying to figure out what is happening here. I just know it's going to be super atmospheric. I've been loving these classic remixes, and I know this will be no exception. I know a lot of people are excited for this next book, and I've been seeing some really good reviews already, and this is The Foxglove King by Hannah Winton, who wrote For the Wolf, which is a book I didn't love, but I really did enjoy it, and it surprised me, and I'm excited to see this adult fantasy by her. And if you read through the synopsis, it does seem to follow a lot of YA tropes, and I've heard that it does kind of feel YA in some ways with maybe some more adult themes, but that doesn't bother me. Just know that going in. And sometimes I just love a good royal court story, and I hope that this is what delivers on that. And we're following a main character who can raise the dead, and she escaped a cult in the catacombs of her city and has been on the run ever since, and her job is running poisons for different people, and something goes wrong in one of her missions and her power is discovered. She is taken within the royal court and it all falls apart from there. I think she's got a forbidden romance in there as well, so I'm really looking forward to this. I know I'll be reading this with friends soon, so that is one to look forward to. This next one I actually have an ALC of, but I haven't gotten to it yet. It was on my February TBR. I just don't think I'll have the time, but I do want to get to it before the release day. And this is Wayward by Amelia Hart, and this is following Generations of Witches, which is just something I love. That is why I love the Practical Magic series as much as I do. And I think this has similar vibes, but much darker. There are trigger warnings for male violence in here because we're following all of these women throughout the centuries and how they've all been affected by male violence. So I think it's important to know that going in. It says 3 women, 5 centuries, 1 secret. I had nature in my heart, she said, like she did and her mother before her. There was something about us, the wayward women, that bonded us more tightly with the natural world. We can feel it, she said, the same way we feel rage, sorrow, or joy. So I think it's gonna be beautifully written. I think that the atmosphere is gonna work for me. I love my multi-generational stories with some historical fiction vibes. I think I'm gonna love this. I've been excited for this next one since it was announced before we had a cover, and I just cannot wait. This is A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon by Sarah Howley, and this is Muriel Sparks knows not to trust a demon, especially one that wants her soul, but what's a witch to do when he won't leave her side and she kind of doesn't want him to? So it's just a fantasy romance that seems a little quirky, and after I read That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon, that series, I realized that that is kind of my happy place with fantasy romance. I love the quirkier the better for me. So even the cover gives you quirky vibes. It is a romance between a witch and a demon, and I think they're forced to be together in some way where she has to like save his soul. He wants to take her soul and she won't let him, but I don't know, it just sounds fun. And I cannot wait. I've been waiting for this for over a year, so I'm so happy it's almost here. Speaking of waiting for a book for almost a year, I read Love and Other Disasters, I think last February. Absolutely adored that book. I've been waiting for something else by Anita Kelly ever since, and that is happening. Something Wild and Wonderful is coming out on March 7th. And this is Grumpy Sunshine, which, you know, I just love. I think a lot of us love that trope. But it's set on like a hiking trail. I think one of our characters is more experienced hiker and the other is just there for a good time, and they meet on the trail and they have a romance. And I have read some stellar early reviews. I'm so envious of everybody who has an arc, but you know I pre-ordered this. You know I'll be reading it the day it comes out. I just love Anita Kelly. Love this whole setup. I don't think I've ever read a romance set centered around hiking. I think this is going to be really fun. Who among us doesn't love a good con story? I know that I do, and this is confidence. It sounds a little bit different than a normal con story, and obviously put emphasis on the con and confidence, and this is by Raphael Frumkin, and it says 2 lifelong friends, occasional lovers, and constant con men find themselves on top of the world after founding a company that promises instant enlightenment to its users in this thrilling, brainy caper about scams, schemes, and the absurdity of the American dream. But like a good con story, like a good scam story, I think that this is really going to be a commentary on chasing the American dream, which I think is going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to this one. Again, if you're like me and you like rich people drama, I think I have the book for you. This is Pineapple Street by Jenny Jackson. I think Pineapple Street is based on the fruit streets in Brooklyn Heights. This book is set in Brooklyn Heights, and if you've ever Googled those streets, you know that we're talking about the mega rich here. And we're following 3 characters within this family and just all the drama that goes on behind the scenes. So I think we're following a daughter who has left the family, given up all the wealth just for a simpler life. We're following a daughter-in-law that's married into the family, and then we're following one of the, I think it's another woman. Yeah, we're following let me see, the baby of the family, Georgiana, has fallen in love with somebody she can't have and must confront the kind of person she wants to be. So it's all these 3 women and their struggles within this family. So I think that just is going to be a good entertaining time. And winner for my favorite premise, I don't think just of the month, of the year, goes to The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell. And this is a murder mystery that is happening on the set of a show much like The Great British Bake Off. If that doesn't sell you on this, I don't know what will. I love this cover so much with the golden spoon with the blood dripping down. I think this is set at like a chateau owned by a really prestigious chef, and they have this cooking show. Things start to go wrong. I think a contestant is murdered. I think it starts off with like people swapping out sugar for salt and like little sabotages here or there throughout the competition, but eventually it leads to a murder. And I think this is going to be such a good time. If this lets me down, I'll be so disappointed because I am just so hyped on this premise. And then ending March 7th with a romance. I love this cover. This is The Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen by KJ Charles. KJ Charles has wrote quite a few romances, and I've always had my eye on her books, but I think this is the one I'm going to read first because I think I'm going to really love Regency romance. The ones I have read, I've really enjoyed. And I think this one takes on maybe heavier themes than you might expect in your traditional romance. I think our characters were together for a time. They broke up. It was like a forbidden romance. Then the other one ends up blackmailing the other one who has money because it's an attempt to save his sister, and obviously they hate each other at this point and will fall in love again, so we'll see how that is all handled. But I just can't get over this cover. It's so pretty. Moving on to March 14th, we're starting with a novella, and this is Feed Them Silence by Lee Mondello, who wrote Summer Sons, which I had an arc of and read and really enjoyed. I applied for an arc of this and was denied, but I'm not salty about that at all. I am just so excited to read this. I discovered over the course of the 72 hours in the haunted house readathon that I really do like sci-fi horror, and this definitely fits into that. I think that this has something to do with sheep or goats and being in their brains and hearing their thoughts, and I like sci-fi horror that really gets into the ethics of research and experiments like this, and I think that's what's gonna happen here. This sounds very weird, really out there, but I love that, especially in horror, especially in sci-fi horror. And I already know I like this author's writing. I think the fact that this strange concept is just a novella is probably perfect, and I cannot wait to read it. This next one was described as cottagecore fantasy romance, and that's all I needed to know, but then I saw this cover and I was 100% sold on it. This is Flower Heart by Catherine Bakewell, and this is following a girl who has a strong, powerful magic that she can't control, and she ends up creating poisonous flowers in her father's chest, and she has to make a deal with a former friend in order to save him. But it's a very unfair bargain, but she has to go with it to save her father, and she realizes that her former friend is hiding more than she realized, but I think it turns into a romance between them, and we find out why they are no longer friends. And I think her magic sounds really cool. If she can grow flowers and stuff, I think that's going to be really interesting. I hope that this lives up to the cottagecore vibes, because that is all I'm hoping for. I have had Denise Williams romances on my TBR for far too long, but I think I'm going to start with Love and Other Flight Delays because it is a series of 3 interconnected novellas taking place in an airport, and I think novellas are a good way to get a taste for an author's writing. That's something that I do all the time. I read a novella or a short story from somebody, fall in love with their writing, and then want to explore their backlist. So I think this is a good place to start. I love the idea of all of these different love stories happening within the same airport, kind of like a Love Actually vibe, and I'm just really excited for this. I have really loved some of Mindy McGinnis's books in the past. The Female the Species is one of my favorite YA thrillers. I think that she writes really interesting, dark YA thrillers, and she's not afraid to go there, and I think that's what we're gonna get in A Long Stretch of Bad Days. If you like podcast thrillers, this is the book for you. I'll definitely be checking this audiobook out because, of course, a podcast element in a book, you always want to listen to it if you can. And this is set in a small town. We're following a character who needs one more credit to graduate, and she just wants to get out of the small town, and to earn extra credit, she has agreed to start this podcast where she's investigating this really bad week that the town had. I think there was a tornado, a flash flood, and the only murder that ever happened in this town that's still gone unsolved. And she has to work with another student that she cannot stand, who also needs another credit to graduate, and they work through this mystery. I'm sure they have a romance, and their investigations unearth buried secrets, a hidden town brothel, lost family treasure, and a teen girl who disappeared. But the past is never far, and some don't want it to see the light. As threats escalate, the girls have to uncover the truth before the dark history of Humley catches up with them. So I just trust Mindy McGinnis. I do really like her dark white thrillers. I've said it time and time again, but I really do like books that talk about grief, and that's what we get in this collection of short stories. It's called A Manual for How to Love Us by Erin Slaughter. This is a debut, which is exciting, and I think all the stories really just tackle and focus on women's grief, the messiness of grief, how everybody grieves differently. From what I can tell from the synopsis, we're getting a range of genres in here. I just want to read you some of what the stories are about. It says, in these unconventional and unpredictable connected stories, Erin Slaughter shatters the stereotype of the soft-spoken, sorrowful woman in distress, queering the domestic and honoring the feral in all of us. In each story, grieving women embrace their wildest impulse as they attempt to master their lives. One woman becomes a grazer at a fraternity house, another slowly moves into her otherworldly stained glass art. A couple speaks only their basement's black box, and a throuple must decide what to do when one partner disappears. So we're getting a range of stories there. I think this is going to be really interesting. Something else I love are stories about brothers and sisters, and this is called Brother and Sister Enter a Forest by Richard Mirabella. This sounds like it's going to be really dark. We are following a brother and sister who had a difficult childhood, and the sister always felt like her brother's keeper, but they haven't spoken in many, many years. And to get away from a rough home life, the brother really escaped into this really unhealthy and toxic relationship with another man, and the brother ends up committing a crime, and I think I can guess what the crime is, and ends up on the sister's doorstep one day, and her love for her brother still runs deep, and they end up on the run. So I think that this is going to be really hard hitting, lots of trigger warnings and content warnings, as I said, but I have read early reviews and people are really appreciating this. I do think it sounds really interesting. And then last, for March 14th, is Bitter Medicine by Mia Sa. And this is another fantasy romance. It's actually a romance between a Chinese immortal and a French elf. Navigate a romance, family loyalty, and workplace demands. So our main character is supposed to be a doctor, but she's working in calligraphy right now, and she's hiding her magic because her and her brother are actually on the run from their murderous brother, and using her magic would expose them, so that she's keeping it quiet. And she has a romance with one of her clients, Luke, and it says that he is a top security expert and he has his own secret. He's responsible for a curse laid on 2 children from an old assignment. To heal them, he'll need to perform his job duties with unrelenting excellence and earn time off from his boss. So it's just the two of them navigating their lives and falling in love. I think it's going to be really fun. I have so much desert fantasy on my TBR, and I'm definitely going to do a reading vlog around that, and this will be on the top of my list. This is The Lies of Unjungo by Moses Oz Otami, and this is a story that follows a boy's epic quest to bring water back to his city and save his mother's life. They say there's no water in the city of lies. They say there's no heroes in the city of lies. They say there's no friends beyond the city of lies. But would you believe that what they say in the city of lies? And we're following a young boy, and in this city of lies, they actually cut the tongues out of children when they turn 13, and our main character is about to turn 13, but he realizes that his mother won't survive till then if she doesn't get water. So he goes on an adventure outside of the wall, outside the city, to find water, and realizes everything that's behind the wall and all the lies that he's been told. And I think this is going to be incredible, incredible, incredible. The next one was actually one of my most anticipated releases, but it's getting mixed reviews on Goodreads, which makes me sad, but I'm still going to go into it with an open mind because I love the premise, I love the title, and I love the cover. And this is The Witch and the Vampire by Francesca Flores. And this is actually a queer Rapunzel retelling where I just think this vampire and witch fall in love, and they have to escape into the forest. As far as I know, they must journey together through a cursed forest with dangers at every turn. So I'm really hopeful that I will love this still. I'm going to go into it, as I said, with an open mind because I just can't get over this cover, and I just love the whole premise. I haven't read The Lost Apothecary, but it's been on my radar. But that author, Sarah Penner, has a new book coming out. It's called The London Seance Society, and I love the sound of this. We're following a woman who can talk to murder victims, like does seances and talks to murder victims to find out who their killers are. And we're following another woman whose sister has been killed, and she doesn't believe in this, but she's going to try and find answers anyway. And these two women actually end up working together. I think she becomes this woman's like assistant or apprentice, and they are going to go solve some London murders within the Seance Society, and they realize they're getting more than they bargained for. So I just love that whole setup. I actually have 2 mermaid books on my list this month, 2 very literary sounding and unique mermaid books, and I'm really excited for both of them. And the first one is American Mermaid. This is by Julia Langbein, and this is following a woman who is a writer, and she writes a really popular novel called American Mermaid, and it's being adapted into a movie, and she is invited to come to LA to write the screenplay. And she thinks that her character is coming to life and trying to get vengeance on Hollywood because everybody that's working on the movie is trying to make her make changes to the main character. The main character in her original story is disabled, and I think that they're trying to turn the character into like a young sexy teen with like the clam bra and all that stuff, and she's thinking that the main character is coming to life and fighting against this and sabotaging the movie. Then the co-screenwriter or the director or somebody wants to actually kill off the character in the end, and it really all starts to hit the fan after that. So I think that sounds kind of epic. Okay, almost done. We're on the last day, March 28th. We're starting with one I think is a vampire story. It's kind of vague in the description, but I kind of love that. And it's YA. There's something about YA vampires that I kind of love. And this is In Nightfall by Susan Young. And we're following a brother and sister who have like a rager while their parents are out of town. And they get caught, and their punishment is that they have to go to their grandparents' home in this small town. I think the town has less than 1,000 people. And they really want to embrace the summer and still try and have fun. They meet this trio of girls that are very intriguing and mysterious, and maybe darker things are happening here. That's all I can get from the synopsis, but it sounds really good. I love that kind of setup. I love this cover. Love me some teenage vampires, so I'm hopeful for that one. And then probably my most anticipated book of the year, or one of them, because this author has 2 books coming out this year, but this is A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. This is one of her horror books, and I cannot wait. It is following a main character who is going home to see her mom for the first time in a long time, and she's just so excited to have that feeling of home again, to be comforted by her mother and just relax. But when she gets there, her mom is nothing like she was before. The really homey house has been painted a stark white. Her mom is scared by every little sound. She goes outside to take a breather, and she finds a jar of teeth hidden behind a plant. So that sounds creepy. Something about teeth gets to me. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be like a creepy house. I don't know where the teeth are coming from. It's T. Kingfisher. I trust her. Then we have the next mermaid book, and this is one that I'm really excited about. I've talked about this a few times because I'm just really amped on it. And this is Chlorine by Jade Song. And our main character is a professional swimmer. She lives and breathes swimming. She thinks that nothing can go wrong when she's in the water, that she can live up to her coach's expectations, her family's expectations when she's in the water. She loves it so much that she just wants to build an entire life there. She dreams about the smell of chlorine, and I think she's slowly turning into a mermaid, or is she really? So I'm so intrigued by that. Does that not sound really, really good? Can't wait to get my hands on a copy of that. And then the last one is one that again has a vague premise, but I kind of love that in horror. And this is Lone Woman by Victor Lavelle. And I just heard Angela from Literature Science Alliance talk about this in her most recent video, her Friday Reads video, and talk about how much she loved it, which really made me even that much more excited. I've been wanting to read from this author for a long time. The Changeling has been on my TBR for ages. Maybe I'll get to that next month because I think there's a tour title, and Tour.com-a-thon is happening next month, so you never know. But this is following a woman who is on the run, and she has like this trunk that is locked up and she can never open it because whenever she does, people around her die. That is how her parents died, and she's keeping dark secrets. She's never really alone. I don't know, it sounds very odd. What is happening in this trunk? It's like that don't open a box trope, but it sounds very, very mysterious. So I want to know more, and I'm really excited for that. So that is a lot of titles. I actually have a few more that I am just going to put in a blog post, so I will leave that link down below because I'm losing my voice and this video would be way too long. I told you March is a huge release month, so let me know what March release you are most excited to read, which ones I missed. I want to hear it all. Thanks again for your support. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.